rock, street trash, Wastelands. And here are your hosts, longtime partners in slime, Adam Obscene and Mark.
Hello world, this is Wastelands. I'm Adam Obscene, and with me, as always, is the mighty Marco Mark.
Adam Obscene. Hey, so good to be with you. So great to be here with you tonight, too, listeners.
Mate, I might be a little bit more on the lower end of the scale in my octaves. The bass notes may be just that little bit more saucy because I've still got the loogie.
Oh, yep. Adam's still unwell, everyone.
All for our listeners' pleasure, because I ultimately think that when I'm like this, the whine goes out of my voice. Isn't it funny when I said whine? It was actually really quite whiny. Listeners, this is our 100th episode. Welcome to the 100th episode. Welcome to the finale of Season 3. That means we've been doing this bugger for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Congratulations, Ads.
Congratulations, Marco. It's a bit weird that the conclusion of our third year anniversary coincides with 100 episodes. I think that's pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Couldn't have planned that any better ourselves, eh?
No, not at all. Consistency is key. Look, Marco, we kicked off back in 2019 a little series which was our formative films, where we sort of went through and talked about, I guess, like the top 5 films that left an impression on us that would actually make us who we are today.
Yeah.
And I guess that theme has meandered in and out of what we've spoken about in the last 3 years. Most films, you would say, have popped up because they mean something to us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes not, but mainly yes. I'm thinking like the cult ones, like, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Hills Have Eyes or Monster Dog or Hell Comes to Frogtown or the list. The list goes on. We have done a lot of movies. For a punk rock podcast.
Yeah.
Funny that. So you came up with this idea about, we had some ideas about what we wanted to do for the 100th episode, and then you shot me an email or text last week saying unorthodox comfort movies. Films that you sort of turn to that aren't your Milo and Otis. You know, it's for freaks like us, the film that puts us in our happy place and actually lulls us into that sense of comfort. I really liked it. I hadn't even thought of that, but I think that in some ways, Wastelands is the unorthodox comfort movie show. So we thought we'd like touch on 2 of our sort of unorthodox comfort films.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Adam, because we've chosen a movie each to talk about, and I think that these movies were. I felt like we were probably going to do these anyway.
I think we were.
I think we were going to do the movies that we chose, and then I sort of started thinking why, and something I had seen in an interview on YouTube with another great horror fanatic channel. An interviewee said, I know it's unorthodox, but it's one of my comfort movies. And I was like, that's incredible. This is because she kind of articulated how we just sort of generally feel about it. And I sort of flicked that idea to you, as you mentioned. And so we were set the task of finding each our unorthodox comfort movies, like they're not what you'd expect. But for us, they probably with other movies too, like they're a comfort movie. And they probably are exactly the same ones that we were going to do anyway.
They are exactly the same ones that we were going to do because it just really put a descriptor over the reason why we're doing it. So it links back to our formative 5 and everything that I was talking about before. Listeners, just a short little note of caution. If you're expecting this to be our normal shorter style episode, hang on, because because it's our 100th episode, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive in this one. So,
Yep.
So if you can stick with us, that would be amazing, because I think there's going to be a lot of gold in here. Now, Marco,
Yeah.
before we launch straight, this is probably the longest intro we've done to a show since episode 1.
Yeah. True.
So let's not break formula.
Okay.
I've got the trailer queued up here of your pick.
Oh, great.
I will do the thing I normally do and play it, and then I'll brutally scrub through it to the bits that I think. So it'll be quite random, and we'll come back on the other side of this.
Sounds great. Brutal scrub me away.
This is the story of 2 young American students traveling through England on the night of the full moon.
Did you hear that? I heard that. What was it? Could be a lot of things.
Wasn't a lunatic.
What?
A wolf.
Oh, be serious, would you?
And now everything is changing. Changing. Changing.
Good Lord.
John Landis, the brilliant young director of Animal House and the Blues Brothers, has turned a classic tale of terror into something new.
A classic tale of terror into something new.
Yeah, and he sure did. An American Werewolf in London, Adam, from 1981.
Mate, what a cracker of a pick. Mate,
it stands up still.
When did you first
Okay.
When did you first see this one?
It wasn't 1981. I think it was about 1984. Yeah, so showing my age a bit there. I was 10 years old, but you guys out there can do the math. And
He's old.
And we had, here's the thing. My brother and I were with our mum down in Brisbane, because we lived about 100 kilometres north. We had that day gone to what I thought was kind of fitting into this, a kind of like national park area just outside of Brisbane, Queensland, called J.C. Slaughter Falls. So we had gone, we were high energy kids, so were my cousins. So I guess, the parents just let them go and roam as far as they can here in the big park area. And their plan came down quickly because it started snowing, or sleeting, when it rains slush puppy.
Yeah.
Dyed, unflavored slush puppy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's horrible, and it goes straight to the bone.
It does. So any plans of wiping us out with a day out just running in every single direction out in nature got thwarted by my aunt and mum, and we were quickly sort of huddled into the car and taken to a shopping centre to stock up on warm clothes, get dried off. And then while we were there, I guess they decided, what the fuck are we going to do with these maniac boys now? We've got 4 of them. What are we going to do with them? All right, straight to the video shop. So they let us go and choose some movies. And a couple of my cousins, being a bit older, a bit more living in the city, knew about an American Werewolf in London. I'd never heard of it, neither had my brother, who's younger than me. So we ended up coming home with this movie, as well as probably a couple of others that I can't remember anymore because they had less of an impact, if any impact. This made an impact that lasts still to now, tonight, in middle of 2022. I chose it as my comfort movie. So we sat down and watched it. And as you could just imagine, guys, like we were all, the little kids in that era of Stranger Things that's so popular now, with, aunt putting in the VHS tape into the huge, big original VHS tape machines, the silver ones. And this movie coming on, and man, oh man, like my brother and the cousin, who is both the same age, probably about 3 years younger, They found it to be hilarious. A hoot and a holler. And my cousin and I, who were older, like we were just piling pillows on top of us to stop any light getting in. We were terrified, you know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we'd come back out, see another scene that freaked us out, and then go and hide under a stack of pillows again. But Jim and my cousin were probably just at that age where they just thought anything was funny, you know, just to give the parents the shits or the older brothers the shits. And it impacted me to the point where I never forgot it. There were some things in it that even when because I've watched it so many times. If I watched it in my teens, watched it in my 20s, watched it in my 30s. Now I'm watching it in my late 70s. And and so okay, all right, my mid 80s. I'm listening to it, watching it again in my mid 80s now, and those parts are still like when I know they're coming up, I'm like, oh shit, here comes the transformation part. But now that little twinge of scariness is like. It's nostalgia. It's that hardened diamond that's become nostalgia, you know?
Yeah.
And I could watch it and now like see the comedy in it because it really is a horror comedy.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some really familiar faces in it. And it really now it's a comfort movie because I love comedy. I love some of the actors that were nobodies in this movie. I'm thinking of Rick Mayall as one. And I love the horror genre. And John Landis made an incredible movie. So it's for so many reasons, it stood the test of time and become my unorthodox comfort movie. You know, like you said, it's not Babes in the Woods or Milo and Otis or, you know, Watership Down. It's this.
It's definitely I love it too. And it's interesting because my origin story on is very similar to yours.
Oh, wow.
I never realised this. This is the first time we've shared how we first watched it. I was at my grandparents' place, and my cousins were living with my grandparents at that time, and it was raining outside, and they said, what are we going to do with these kids? I know, let's go to the video shop. And we went to the video shop, and the cousins who were a little bit older than us knew about American Werewolf in London, and they grabbed that, and they brought it, and they took it down, and we sat in the lounge room, or the TV room that my gran and granddad had, and we watched it, and it scared the absolute bejesus out of me.
Yeah, too young to watch it, you know, but you still watch it.
And it was probably around that 1984 time.
84? Yeah.
And what stuck with me was that I had seen a little bit of Hammer horror, you know, thanks to cousins and stuff like that, and it really felt like a more modern, like it felt like a Hammer horror in the modern day because it had all the English pubs and the dark, you know, and even that scene at the start when just as the fella gets attacked by the werewolf and it's all jumpy and then all the old villagers pop up out of nowhere with their shotguns and they're all dressed in their hunting gear, looks like a Hammer film, right?
Yeah, and the accents.
Yeah, and it felt familiar, but then it went to the next level where, like, this is an Academy Award-winning film in special effects. Like, the special effects in this movie now look a little bit funny, but back then was like the transformation scenes like you were talking about, and, you know, those scenes that when he's transforming, and it's just amazing. But
yeah, for sure. That's the pinnacle. Like, that changed it. For me, like that part of it is terrifying the first couple of times that you watched it.
Yeah.
And I know, this film is so beloved. There's so much information out there about it. And
up until this point too, Marco, werewolf films were kind of like the poor man's brother to the staple of Frankenstein and Dracula because the transformations were never actually very good. Yeah, in the classic sort of like, Wolfman.
Lorne Chaney.
And even in the Hammer, the Curse of the Werewolf with, they still did that morphing two-screen type of thing, but this went into full tilt animatronics. Like, it was amazing. So
it was really cool.
So much you can talk about, and I just saw you waving your legal pad around. So Hit me
Yeah.
with it, brother.
Well, there's another movie, the 1935 Werewolf of London, which was directed by Stuart Walker and starred Henry Hull as the Wolfman in that. Like that's 1935, and that would have scared the bejeebus out of people then. But no way would they have had Rick Baker's practical effects there. What was scary for that era was that funny sort of transition between normal man and then man made up,
laying over the shot over the top of it, and it flashing in and out and in and out, and so and then they fall off camera. And then they jump up and they're in a wolf.
and they come up looking like Channel 7's Aggro.
Michael J. Fox.
Sorry, that's an in joke for Southeast Queensland people. Aggro was a hairy monster puppet.
He was actually a bastardized animal from the Muppets puppet. Toy puppet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there was a toy puppet that came out in the 80s, which was Animal, and the guy, Jamie Dunn, who took him and did it on this TV show called Wombat, actually brutalized this animal puppet to create Aggro.
Nice.
Total sideline there, but for our international viewers, type in Aggro, that's A-R-G. No, what is it? A-R-G.
A-G-R-O?
A-G-R-O, Aggro, the puppet.
Aggro puppet, yeah. So the Lon Chaney's werewolf always came up looking like that hand puppet, but Rick Baker and John Landis,
next level.
Next level, kind of like the same way The Walking Dead did. Next level,
and it really relaunched werewolf films too, because like The Howling and like movies sort of come after that, sort of took that transformation, practical effects to the next level, right?
Baker had left John Landis because it was getting Landis so long to get the movie into production. Baker left and he went and started working on The Howling, and Landis lured him back to continue with American Werewolf in London, and left The Howling's practical effects up to his right hand man there, and still acted as a consultant. So he was on 2 werewolf movies at once.
Yeah, because they were sort of pinnacle, weren't they? That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he and you're right, Ad. This movie won an Academy Award for the makeup and prosthetics, which was had been created and added to the Oscars only the year before.
Yeah, one of the first awards, wasn't it, to win that? One of the first.
Yeah,
to win that award.
Yeah. I think it was the first one.
The worst.
The first one to win that award. I might be wrong, and I'm sure someone will correct me for that.
And we'll just ignore them because they don't get a voice unless I say so. The transformation scene. Speaking of the practical effect, the transformation scene took a week to shoot, and they got down 30 minutes. 30 minutes of footage for a week's work, and it was 10 hours to put the makeup on, and 15 minutes of shooting, and 3 hours to take the makeup back off again. Wow!
And they ended up with 30 minutes worth of footage that they used for that transformation scene.
Well, you think that's a 97-minute movie, so that's an epic investment, isn't it? Like to get that sort. And sure, they didn't use all the 30 minutes of footage because it's quite selective, but that's that goes to show how important the practical effects were to achieve the success of this movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they would go. I don't know if it was just because these effects were becoming used more and more in the industry overall, or whether this movie was the icebreaker that introduced these practical techniques. But similar things were turning up in The Thing. The John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
That was so heavy on the special effects when you look back on that.
The Beastie thing in that just was next level with its like head coming out of its a-hole and stuff like that. That was just like brutal.
Yeah, and and fully taken to the next level in the later Aliens movies. That goes a bit sort of like so far out of comparison by that time, but in those earlier 80s John Carpenter movies, I see a direct correlation with the special effects from Werewolf and so like The Thing, stuff like that.
Definitely. And funny because The Thing had like a connection. You mentioned the Werewolf for London. American Werewolf in London came from Werewolf in London. The Thing was basically Carpenter's take from the drive-in, The Thing from Outer Space. So they had their heritage in like 1930s, 40s, 50s, like classic B films. So it was almost like the 80s was that real classic era where classic themes were getting a good dosage of modern 80s practical effects to bring it to the contemporary age. So you can see it in a few movies around that time which have got done like that, which I guess in a way sort of feeds into that reason why it's a bit of a comfort movie, right? Because it's got a nostalgia about it, because it feels like something very familiar, but then it's got something new that makes you like hide under a cushion.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so new for the time, and it doesn't feel new anymore. But it like I said, it's just nothing but it's a good time movie with some scares, some very well done practical scares. And nostalgia for sure. It's I like that. Probably it feels like what they were doing, Adam. And I'm just riffing here, but it's just an opinion. It was something new at the time. That level of special effects and reimagining horror in a place like England that had Pinewood Studios that was doing all of the Hammer horror movies. To do it in such a new way, I think really speaks to what was happening at that time in England anyway. By 1981, the Sex Pistols had come and gone, and by 81, that 77 punk rock scene was morphing into sort of like the more mohawk, colourful punk rock
UK
scene.
82 was just around the corner with the Exploited and all the really sort of next level sort of hardcore Mohican punk bands that were sort of oi inspired, just a bit more street punk. So it was all disenfranchised in there.
There were people out there taking chances in old institutions. The people starting to take chances in music more. People were starting to take chances in art more, and London was the epicenter of it. And things like with the movies as well. They had, in that decade, from 69 through to 81, it was Hammer horror. A lot of the British style Hammer horror movies got transported over to America, where they did kind of sorry, but I thought were like sort of second-rate versions of the originals. And comedy, even in comedy, there was a revolution in comedy, as you see in this as well. So you had Monty Python were just on their out, and British comedy was starting to come from the university circuit, So we see in American Werewolf in London one of those guys. We see Rick Mayall from The Young Ones, Drop Dead Fred, all the other stuff that he did after that. Bottom, Guest House Paradiso. He became a household name in my household anyway, and probably yours too.
Absolutely.
But
one of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure. But on a night off, when they were shooting American Werewolf in London, the guys from the Muppets were there. Frank Oz and Jim Henson.
Yep.
Thank you. And they took John Landis out to a local comedy club. where they saw Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mayall do their pre-Young Ones stand-up, you know? So it was like that sort of punk rock, explorative comedy, that alternative comedy that really came through at that time. You've got, at that time you had Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, Rowan Atkinson, Nigel Planer,
Ben Elton.
All these guys were just coming straight out of university and university talent shows and theatre productions, and having their own punk rock spin on comedy. So you can also see that in there too. So game changing and raising the stakes and leaving these sort of institutions a little bit in the past, because you can do something fresher and better. That's all in this movie, I think. Absolutely. And that was what was the vibe of the time.
I want to play, just for a quick interlude, one of my favourite lines from American Werewolf in London. You ready for it?
Yeah.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
That was a common line in our household. A naked American man stole my balloon.
That's great. Oh, another one. Another one was stick to the roads, lads, and stay off the moors. That was another good one as well.
It's like, can I borrow your tractor?
Yeah. What's that star for?
It's I think a couple of standout scenes in this movie. The Nazi werewolves in the nightmare scene with the machine guns.
Yeah.
That scene has stuck with me through thick and thin. Like, it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. And you can see the impact of that, like, in the Grindhouse trailers for Tarantino and Rodriguez's double feature. Rob Zombie did the werewolf trailer in that, and he's got Nazi werewolves in it, and it's just a direct throwback to that. You know, I think that's the one that's got Christopher, is it Nicolas Cage playing Fu Manchu?
Well, I think
so kids are watching the Muppets, aren't they? Are they watching the Muppets? And then
a Jewish family.
Yeah, and then the Nazi werewolves come in shooting everything up, which is that connection to Jim Henson, right? And Frank Oz.
Yeah, that's right. So there was, and Frank Oz was the American embassy representative that came to David Kessler's bedside when he was recuperating in hospital. The nasally guy with the glasses who called all young people ungrateful. That was Frank Oz. And yeah. So there's a really close tie-in with the Muppets guys and John Landis with this. Yeah,
and I think they would have been filming. I don't know which one of the Star Wars movies. Maybe Empire Strikes Back. They were doing at Pinewood Studios at that time.
I'm not sure,
because a lot of actors, classic actors from the Star Wars films, were all British as well. You know, like Peter Cushing and David Prowse, who was inside the Darth Vader suit, was like the big. He was also in Clockwork Orange, the big muscle man in the house that gets taken. All sidelines, but there's definitely lots of connections with it. There's so much deep dive that over the years you can actually start to really pick lots of bits and pieces out of it. So
so true. So you sort of work it out. Oh, that's why that person was there, and that's why that happened
in it. Or Rick Mayall. You sort of see all these bits and pieces through there, and you go, there's a bigger network of just a film, which is just what happens in culture, right?
Yeah, for sure. And taking advantage of some of the new things that you discover while you're working on a creative endeavor in a foreign capital city. You're bound to come across some cool new stuff.
That's awesome. Hey, this one?
Body count.
So I did a little bit of research because I knew you'd probably forget.
I forgot. Okay.
So the body count for American Werewolf in London is 26 kills in 97 minutes. Wow. So that is a 0.268 kpm, kills per minute, which basically gives you one kill every 3.7 minutes.
decent. That's very
got to be
decent.
like up there with one of our highest kill counts, mate.
Yeah, it must be. Even though it was a concentrated amount of killing in a short amount of time.
Yeah, so that's this. So this is body count part 1.
Body count. Body count.
Oh, look at our 100
Nice.
and the 100th episode. I was tight.
Tight. That was so tight. I mean, speaking of body count, Adam, how insane was the Piccadilly massacre out on the street where cars are crashing and heads are getting bitten off and that werewolf's just stalking like, my God, that's insane.
And it's like that thing. It takes it from being in the moors, which is a traditional sort of like Hammer, old school horror-esque site.
Sure.
The wolf on the moors, stick to the trucks and the roads, and then just whacking it in the middle of the city in broad daylight, just carnage. That was rad. That was rad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't seem to be portrayed as being too perturbed by the carnage around it in the city either.
No, it was just like,
was just
bloodthirsty.
And the hunting. So I guess, Adam, at that time, that's revolutionary to bring those, stalking those victims in probably, if you were a Londoner at that time, into maybe some of these really familiar places.
Yeah, like those tube tunnels and things like that. Being the one entry, one way out, and being chased out of it. There's only one way to go.
Yeah, that reality. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that. I mean, the guy in the subway or in the tube, I should say, was always the scariest one for me because, we've all been to a train station of some sort and you can just put yourself in that guy's position like, fuck, run, and to no avail, that was a very claustrophobic, panic-inducing scene for sure. But it just works so beautifully and it's so watchable.
The way it's filmed really inspires that because it's from the perspective of the wolf hunting its prey.
Yeah.
So you're not the victim. You're actually from the point of view of the werewolf, but you're still feeling for the victim. It's actually just a really good play on how your emotions are being set. I think it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Definitely.
It looks effortless. But it's perfect.
And it's one of those ones that probably gets discounted as a B film by lots of people. But, like I said, we talked a lot about the transformational practical effects, but the practical effects on, forgive me, what the best mate who gets mauled by the werewolf's name is. I can't remember.
His name is... Sorry.
His practical effects on his rotted, shredded skin, as it's aging through the film, and it's just it's pretty brutal when he's all blood and fresh. But then when Jack comes back to in visions to sort of when he's having nightmares, the way that the slashed skin off his cheek and his neck is just hanging there.
Yeah.
That's stuck with me too, mate.
That's a brutal thing to see. Wow.
As a 10-year-old.
As a 10-year-old, and then for him to turn up like nothing's happened in the girlfriend in like your new girlfriend's home, the seemingly bringing the supernatural and grotesque into a seemingly really
just sitting on the couch having a chat,
lifelike,
having a cup of tea, and the tea falling through your throat.
Yeah, for sure. I'm imagining Robert Kirkman and Greg Nicotero taking the idea of that slow decay and putting it into The Walking Dead because from season 1 to now, there's a lot of decay. It's talked about with the intros have decayed a lot, like the footage and the zombies and the towns they go through. The whole decay of what they're trying to portray. Is what is 10 years, 12 years on from the first apocalypse.
It's going to be interesting topic through this episode is the concept of decay. This is what happens, listeners, as we get onto this thing and we end up pulling connections, particularly when Mark and I compare our things, films, not things.
Oh no! There will be no decay when we.
So
God.
Marco, any
No.
more final points that you want to bring to light about the?
Let's have a look. I made some all a little bit out of order as usual. The main actors were David Norton, Jenny Agutter, and Griffin June. Griffin June was the one that plays Jack, the walking meatloaf, as David called him, and then regretted it during his transformation scene. We talked about The Walking Dead. Rick Baker, I reckon from this, listeners, if you haven't already, go and have a listen to the Joe Rogan podcast where he spends a bit of time with Rick Baker, the effects guy from this who won all the awards. That's a really interesting deep dive, and because we know Joe Rogan has like one of those huge Kessler werewolves in his house, which I think is fucking great. Yeah, I think he appreciates too that marriage of horror and comedy and being so fresh for the time. But that is honestly, that's about it for all my legal pad tidbits for sure.
That's awesome, Marco. What an awesome deep dive. And so that there effectively would normally in normal times would signal the end of an episode.
Yep.
But listeners, guess what? It doesn't, because I'm about to go.
Yes, it's 100. It's 100. Our 100th episode. So it's Adam's turn. So we challenge you to the no scrub challenge. Hit up TLC on MySpace. They'll get back to you and just tell them I'm trying the Wastelands no scrub challenge, and they'll fucking send you out a PVC pair of flares and a tube top and some of those butterfly clips for your hair, and you can like dress up, get your TLC on, and no scrub through this episode.
So this double feature brought to you by TLC. So okay, this is the bit. So I'm gonna, I guess, I don't know how to introduce this because it's a bit fresh, but the listeners, you may not know this. Well, you won't know this unless I tell you. Is that I'm not actually in Studio Obscenito right now.
No,
I'm on the road.
You're in a remote location.
I am in a remote location, and a somewhat post-apocalyptic remote location. The rig has been packed up into a suitcase and is being reinstalled in a little donga.
Bungalow.
A little bungalow, West Queensland. My film that I'm going to be talking about is very strongly connected to this place. But we can never break formula. So here's the trailer, my dear listener, and we'll catch you on the other side of this.
The world had been through a trial by fire, and only the greatest warriors and their deadliest enemies emerged from the flames.
Who are you?
Nobody.
Hold still. I can feel it. The dice are rolling.
He was the one they called Mad.
But he's just a raggedy man.
But to those whose lives hung in the balance,
Where's the waiting ones? Waiting for what? Waiting for you.
he was the one they called Hero.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Now, Mad Max is back in Beyond Thunderdome.
How epic. Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max 3. Look, this is a controversial pick for me because I've got to say this is like my favorite Mad Max movie.
That's excellent.
And it's interesting because of a lot of reasons, which I will be sharing with you shortly.
Sure.
But to sort of end the suspense, right now I'm in Chinchilla, the little town which is about 300, 400 kilometres west of Brisbane. I'm out here doing workshops for young people and doing some art programming. But more interestingly enough, and it was just the timing was amazing, is that it's taken us 100 episodes to talk about Mad Max, dude. How the hell, like we've referred to Mad Max 100 times, nearly every episode, but this is the first time we're actually going to have focused on literally talking about a Mad Max movie.
I'm pumped.
So the big thing about Chinchilla, dear listener and dear Marco, is that George Miller grew up here, the director of Mad Max.
Yep.
His parents owned a small cafe. He moved away in 1963 when he was 18 to study to be a doctor in Sydney. But basically, living here left a lasting impression on him because heading west out of Brisbane, there's the Warrego Highway. And when we say highway, it is highway in the loosest sense of the word. It's basically 2 lanes. It's a death trap. Living in regional remote areas as a young person, cars become a really important survival technique for the independence and self-expression. Much more than out here. What comes from that is car accidents, epic car accidents, lots of road deaths of young men and women on these roads. These themes stuck with George Miller. And so some of the elements of the carnage and the car, the love affair of the car, are absolutely all throughout the Mad Max series. And I think that that's a really amazing thing. I've been driving that highway today. I'll be driving that highway tomorrow. I'm going a bit further out to Miles. And I will take some photos of the Warrego Highway to put up on Instagram for our listeners. But so this is sort of like the origin town without Chinchilla and the culture in the 60s, we wouldn't have Mad Max today. There's another thing I found out today. So that little tidbit of information is there's a plaque in Main Street and Heaney Street in Chinchilla. There's not much to signify that George Miller's from here except for this tiny little weather-beaten plaque, which I will also stick up on Instagram for the listeners to have a look at.
Yes.
But then I was reading around and I was talking to Jen this afternoon and she decided to have a bit of a squiz around on Google and she found me this amazing piece of tidbit information that there was this guy called Max Dinnis, who was a school friend of Miller, who was nicknamed Mad Max for his wild and rough ways. Now, this guy, who was born in the local Chinchilla RSL when it was converted to a field hospital in World War II, was a mad bastard. He loved anything with wheels. He loved guns. He made his own bullets. Like he used to bunny hop motorbikes up onto rail fences and ride them along the top. He was an absolute fucking legend of the area. And so the name Mad Max was from the time when George Miller went to school in Chinchilla, which is cool.
Got it.
So
cool.
So this is the origin backstory. Before we even get to talking about, when you say, hang on a second, why is Thunderdome your favorite Mad Max movie? So we'll go flip back to the page. So Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome from 1985, which has an Internet Movie Database score of 6.2 and an 81% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, is actually higher than I actually thought, because throughout my life I've been, you come across people and they will always compare Thunderdome, obviously, to its first 2 films, Mad Max and Road Warrior, and sort of almost unfairly, because if you watch Mad Max Thunderdome by itself in a standalone film, it holds up. It absolutely does hold up. It just pales into example when it's compared to its predecessors, right?
Yeah, agreed.
It stars Mel Gibson, Tina Turner, Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo, a bunch of other people, and Bruce Spence, the gyro captain, who doesn't play the gyro captain. This film he plays Jebediah, which is a very confusing scenario because it breaks people's brains. But basically, Max is in his late 40s. He's about 46, so he's basically our age.
Yep.
It happens 20 years after the first Mad Max. So that kind of makes if you timestamp that, Mad Max 1 is about 83, 85. So this makes it about 2005 is when So Mad Max. So this is old Mad Max. He's been nomading around. He's he's got them. There's the attention to the detail in this movie for the backstory is so massive. And through the years of watching it and watching it and watching it again, every time I watch it, I pick up something new. Just even recently watching it, when Mad Max goes into Bartertown, so he's been wandering the wastelands and he comes to the last remote outpost of society, which is Bartertown, run by Auntie, who is Tina Turner. You can't go into Bartertown unless you get rid of all your weapons. So he just unloads all his, it's gun after gun after gun. Last time I watched just this last week, I realized he takes out a crossbow. And I went, wait a second, I've seen that crossbow. I went back and watched Road Warrior.
Yeah.
It's actually Wes's crossbow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that is the level of attention to detail that this movie actually has, mate. Like it's unreal. Like it's just there's so much in it that it actually does stand on it. There's also there's hints in this movie that then are totally all in Fury Road.
Yeah.
You can see the origins, it becomes a perfect, and I think this film is Fury Road is amazing. I love that film, but Fury Road brings Thunderdome up because it creates a different continuum of the storyline. So basically, this is the rundown, right? In 2005, Mad Max has been wandering the wastelands. He's old, he's haggard, he's a raggedy man. He basically goes to Bartertown and he's forced to fight in the Thunderdome. It's where he meets Blaster. He then, the epic fight scenes that are in that. He then beats Blaster, goes to kill him, realizes that he's not, he's just a man who, I think he's underdeveloped, probably, not formed. So he has pity on him and doesn't want to kill him, which basically then gets him out of favor with the powers that be. And so he's exiled again to the wastelands where he bumps into a bunch of kids in this weird, and the movie takes this weird Peter Pan sort of flip. And then they go back to Bartertown, and then there's an epic car train chase, and it's the end. Sounds very basic, but this film is broken up into 3 distinct parts, which is the first 45 minutes is all around Bartertown and the brutalness of Bartertown. And in itself, that I love that part. It's my favorite part of the movie is the Bartertown, the way that society has absolutely decayed from just after the fuel crisis in 1983 with Mad Max 1 through to the Road Warrior, where it's actually gone to the point where it's gone to shit. Somewhere between 83 and 5 years later from that. So sometimes between 1985 and 1990, which is around the time that the Road Warrior took, it's gotten worse. Then between 1990 to 2005, there's been a nuclear war. And then, so the ravage and the decay of 2005 is the basis of a nuclear war.
Yep.
Which some people went, it's meant to be gasoline. Well, there's no more gasoline. We've already got rid of the gasoline. We're actually into water. Water is the sacred part, which flows onto then Fury Road. It's a time lineal to connect it.
For sure. And a nuclear war was pretty imperative back then because the Cold War was, they were talking about nuclear war a lot with the Cold War and in those Reagan years, And
it's that time stamp, isn't it? Because in 1985, that was what the big issue was. And when Mad Max in 1979 came out, the big issue was fuel. Melbourne was going through a massive fuel shortage. Australia was going through a fuel shortage. So they became the themes of the time. So they're reflective of that. So I saw this movie actually at the drive-in. Again, another drive-in movie at the Seymour Drive-In.
Seymour Drive-In?
Which is another quite post-apocalyptic rural community.
Oh, no. Hey, the bikers turned you on to Motorhead there. It can't be all that bad.
No, well, that's it, isn't it? That's, there's always some good things. The outcasts are always but yeah, so I think I even have the Mad Max Thunderdome poster as well that I, last episode I showed the ET one.
Yeah, cool.
So there's fond memories of this film. I can't remember if this was. I think I'd seen Road Warrior before I saw this film.
Okay.
And I saw it. I think it was either 2005 or 2006 that I saw this.
Yep.
And I just remember loving it. But then I said, it starts in the first 45 minutes. It's a brutal post-apocalyptic survival decay tent. And then it switches in the second part and becomes almost like this Spielberg-ish focused, like, what like Steven Spielberg did with E.T. was introducing kids as the protagonists, and it has this sort of
Goonies.
Yeah, this Neverland style approach. Yeah. And some people hate that, and I, as a kid, I didn't mind it. Then I sort of, through the 80s and 90s, sort of began to sort of, but revisiting it, it actually has a real purpose, and the purpose is Max's redemption. Yep. It's because he is... he lost his child. He wasn't able to protect his children, his kid in the first one. And then he comes full circle around. He's exiled into the bush, into the desert, and then he discovers not just one child, but a tribe of children that he's going to save. And this is about the end journey of, this is the thinker's Mad Max. It doesn't have the chase scenes. It doesn't have all the stuff that, it's not a road movie. It's not a car movie. Yep. You only get a chase or a car movie scene in the last 15 minutes, which is the final part. And mind you, it's epic. But you learn to sort of, the feeling of those children and the connection of that community sets up Max's redemption as a human, because he becomes pretty inhuman through the series.
Yep.
And then it ends with jumping on the train, which is a truck on the tracks, and then all the marauders chasing. And that's when you get to this is the ticket that the Mad Max lovers wanted. And they wanted to see Angry Anderson as Iron Bar get killed 7 times, because he, like, every time they knock him off and you think he's dead and he's back again. The guy's got more lives than a cat. It's so fun. And then it ends that way, and there's lots of nods to, like, the record on a stick that they play on a record player. There's no way that thing's playing, but who cares? We're not going to get into that. But it was all those elements that I really enjoyed, because it was different to, like, Mad Max, and maybe that's why it was at the time probably shit canned, because it was different to Road Warrior and Mad Max. But if you look back at it, Mad Max 1 and Road Warrior and Mad Max 2 are different films as well.
Yeah.
They're very different films. So to have a third different film, I don't think really makes much difference. And then Fury Road is a different film again, because it just changes. So
that's what you see when you start out with an indie movie created by people from where you are bunked up tonight ads, Chinchilla, that's what you get when unknown people make an amazing fucking independent movie. It gains traction. So Road Warrior was, edging itself closer towards the American market. And then Beyond Thunderdome is the full realization of that. They bring in bigger characters.
It was funded by Hollywood. Warner Brothers got on board. They distributed it. It had a massive budget. I think it had a $30 million budget or something like that for the time. It was huge. And this is the thing, and this is I want to get into, is that bringing in, like, Tina Turner as the main character. It is the first Mad Max song to have Mad Max movie to have pop songs. We Don't Need Another Hero is iconic. You don't have to like Tina Turner to know that song. Like, it was epic at the time. The interesting thing about this is that it was not actually ever really set out to be a Mad Max movie. Miller was working on this with his longtime collaborator, Byron Kennedy, and it was meant to be a Lord of the Flies style future post-apocalyptic film about a tribe of children who were in the future, and a nomadic stranger comes across them and then tries to save them. It was through the film's development, and whilst they were having difficulty pitching it, Miller had this idea that what happened if that nomadic stranger was Max?
Yeah.
And as soon as he said that, they got the funding. So the premise of the almost the Never Never Land, the reason it's there is because that is the original premise of the film.
Yeah,
the Thunderdome, Bartertown, and the post-apocalyptic was elements of there, but it's all now put in the context of Max, and so they've overlaid this redemption story to make sense of that.
Yeah,
it
fits,
and I feel so much more happier about that movie when you put that into context.
Sure.
So
that's really well explained, actually.
Byron Kennedy was a long-time collaborator. He worked with Miller to raise the $350,000 that they got to make the first Mad Max. Unfortunately, tragedy struck in 1983 when Byron was actually killed in a helicopter crash while scouting locations for this film. Which absolutely devastated George Miller. And you can actually, there's a sorrow in Thunderdome, which I think is actually because of that, because they collaborated, they co-directed, they put these films together. It's George Ogilvy is the actual co-director of this because Miller just needed the assistance because he was grieving for a lifelong friend.
Sure.
And so it goes down in folklore that Miller didn't want to deal with people, so he just did the action scenes, and Ogilvy did all the character development scenes, and that's why they sort of different. But that's been debunked in past, that they actually did it all together.
Sure.
But it's actually an interesting thing because there is this almost different style of storytelling because the creative team didn't have Byron Kennedy as the producer because he'd unfortunately passed. So grief-stricken was Miller in the making of this. He's actually said that he remembers very little of actually making this film. But he does remember the film as being a cathartic exercise to work through his grief for the loss of his friend, and I think that's amazing. That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, it was. So like I said, it was the first Mad Max film to receive Hollywood funding. It had the soundtrack. Its working title was actually called Desert World.
Desert World.
Yeah. It makes water world, water world, desert world. I like that sort of connection.
Yeah. Cool. Nice crossover.
Tina Turner was, the role was actually written for Tina Turner, but they weren't sure if they thought there's no hope in hell that Tina Turner is going to go for this. So they were pitching it to Jane Fonda.
Really?
And it was
interesting.
And it was that close to getting Jane Fonda to sign on the dotted line. But then Tina Turner came around and said yes. And they went, So she shaved her head for this because she had to wear a wig. You notice how Tina has a really high hairline in this film? She had no problem. She shaved her head. What a champion. And that chainmail dress is actually weighed over 100 kilos. So, what an absolute champion. I think
what a badass, yeah.
Tina Turner is a badass, man. I don't care what anyone says. That woman is wicked.
She is.
It was the first Mad Max film to receive a PG-13 rating. Consequently, Fury Road also had a PG rating on release, so that started the trend of that connection. A couple other little tidbits in there. Did you know that after Thunderdome, and I'm going to apologise, listeners, my voice is just getting croakier and croakier as we get along.
Sounds good though, mate.
It's getting sexy.
Hey.
So there was actually a TV series pitched after Thunderdome, and it was
cool.
It almost got over the line. Warner Brothers were on board. The first actor it wasn't going to be Mel Gibson. It was someone Blake. I can't remember his name. It was almost going to go, and he got the main actor got seriously injured with brain injury in a car accident. And so they pulled the pin. How amazingly spooky is this whole concept of cars and accidents that keep on plaguing the stories of Mad Max.
Yeah, and of George Miller himself.
Yeah, George Miller. In 93, it was pitched again. I love this dude. This got me so excited when I read this for the first time. Guess who was pitched to play Mad Max and who had actually pretty much was signed on the dotted line to play Mad Max?
Daryl Summers.
No, man. It was Bruce Campbell, dude.
Oh!
Could you imagine Bruce Campbell going groovy?
That Yeah, that would have been a really interesting take on it.
Yeah, so
wow.
But that didn't happen. And it went through various incarnations, in and out, in and out, in and out, which eventually then became Fury Road.
Love it.
So that was...
Tom Hardy is such a worthy Max. I loved him in that.
And there's been lots of conjecture about, where it fits in the timeline, and is Max or is Max a person or a title? And look, it doesn't really matter. It works, and I don't want to dig too deeply into it but I think what I love about it is that there is elements with it which is clearly Miller back to form, doing a car movie with practical effects.
Yep.
Another little tidbit that I wanted to bit of insight is Bartertown was run on pig shit.
Mm-hmm.
This happened before Miller's next massive hit that happened. Well, we had a couple of massive hits, but Babe was...
Oh, yes!
So the pigs in Thunderdome are the direct ancestral connection to Babe. I'm just putting that out
Love
there.
it.
I'm putting that out there, listeners. What else have I got here? Like I said, it's the Thinkers Mad Max. Look, I like it. I will go as far as saying is I don't know if I like it more than the other Mad Maxes, but I like it in a different way because I think it's a different movie, and I will go back to it over and over and over again. Yeah, because it's a comfort movie. It's familiar. I watched it as a kid. I love the Bartertown. Look, listeners, you are listening to a podcast called Wastelands. Like, what else are you going to be getting? Is
Bartertown.
Is Bartertown. I've done the pilgrimage to Chinchilla, well, the unofficial Miller in Chinchilla episode.
Here you are.
And I think there's no more fairly suited way to talk about how to actually celebrate our 100th episode, except for this.
Body count.
Oh, seamless. So, as you could expect, being a PG-13 film, the body count in this isn't that high. It's 5. But that doesn't count the 9 or 10 times that Angry Anderson dies and then comes back. He really gets nailed so many times in this movie, to the point where his car gets blown up by the truck on the train tracks, and he turns around and he does that middle finger up in the wreckage out, and it's like, is he sticking his finger up at Max or the audience? I'm not sure. Knowing Angry Anderson, it's probably the audience. So the movie went for 107 minutes, which means the kill per minute is 0.046, which is about 1 kill every 21.4 minutes.
Right.
So it's not an overly brutal movie in the corpse count, but there's lots of other brutality in it. Like I think the decay of civilization is front and center in this film, and I love that. And I think it became a part of that. What Mad Max inspired post-apocalyptic films. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome just buys into that wheelhouse and actually builds upon it to a level that no other film had done and was able to do, because up until that point they were cheap Italian knockoffs, or they were low rate. This was a big budget post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah. It was on top. It was on top of the castle where it was the whole time. But this was really, really setting the flag on top and just saying, look, we can get big name artists. We can get Hollywood behind us. We can take it from, we can take it from independent
genre films, to make it mainstream.
To huge blockbuster within a trilogy. Done.
And it made money, and it wasn't universally shit-canned. The only reason it was probably the biggest criticism it had from critics was that it was boring. But that's only because they were comparing it to Mad Max Road Warrior, where they just wanted non-stop road chases.
It was just chase scenes.
It's a different type of movie, and I got it. And for that, I think it's a great movie. So the kills, I guess, in comparison for this is Mad Max. Oh, here we get a bonus.
body count, body count.
You get more body counts for your money on episode 100, listeners.
Oh,
the
look at
kill
that.
count for Mad Max Road Warrior is 35. So although and that is huge, that's right up there. In a 96 minute movie, that's 0.363 kills per minute, or one kill every 2.7 minutes. That probably is one of our highest ever kill counts, even though this episode is not about Mad Max, but Road Warrior. But it just gives you an indication of going from an R-rated film with 35 kills to a PG film with 5.
Sure.
That's the difference. And, you know,
body count, body count.
I think this little chinchilla studio is actually making my edit push finger tight as hell, isn't it?
That is the blessing of George Miller
coming down,
hanging over you like a cloud ad's going,
like,
here he is.
You're going to be tight, motherfucker.
It's going to be tight. I will help you.
So
he's like, most finger is helping you slide the faders.
So, listeners, we really, there's not much more I can say. I love this film. I will continue to love. I will fight anybody that actually challenges me. I will fight anyone in a Thunderdome that challenges me that this is not a great movie. I think any movie that can enter the lexicon of who has not heard of Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Like it is iconic. It is an iconic thing. It was bungee cord jumping before there was bungee cords. There's chainsaws, there's pikes, there's a symbiotic relationship between a small person and a Neanderthalic mutated man. It's got Tina Turner. It's got pigs. It's got the B-roll of Australian actors. It was filmed in Cooper Pedy and the Blue Mountains. It's got road rage. It's got road races. It's got trucks. It's got children. It's got Bartertown. It's got radioactive. It's got everything. And you know what? It's great. So
you convinced me, mate.
So, like I said, see you in Thunderdome if you disagree with me, listeners.
Challenge is out there now.
So you can, and if you want to challenge me in a Thunderdome battle, you can reach us on the socials at Wastelands Radio Show. How was that for a segue? That was tight, dude.
George Miller's going to love this.
At Wastelands Radio Show on TikTok, or as Mark says, bloody TikTok.
Bloody TikTok.
On Instagram and Facebook, or Wastelands RS on Twitter. You can also send us an email at wastelandsradioshow@gmail.com. And you can go to the website, wastelands.com.au for hints, tips, and a booking form for Thunderdome with Adam Obscene.
Yes, the podcast where two men enter,
but two men leave their own separate ways. Listeners, we have cracked over the hour. This is officially the longest ever Wastelands episode we have ever done. But, you know, we can do that.
Yeah. 2 movies, 1 episode, and it's our 100th.
So you can always pause it in the middle and come back at the, listen to it on the way to work and listen on the way home. It's all good.
Perfect.
Marco, congratulations on sticking with this. It's been a ride, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, but it's been a fun ride. I've loved every bit about it, but I really loved the episodes and the footage we've done together. That has been so much fun.
And Lawson, you can expect more of that to come because Marco is moving back to sunny Queensland, and we will be podcasting in the flesh more often, which means more video hilarity, more crossovers, and I think probably a bit more piss take videos, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I think we'll be able to. Yeah, I think we'll be able to do that. I really like it. I like our banter when we're sitting in the same room. I don't know. It just fires me up. I can't help but laugh all the way through that shit.
It's great. And look, we started this in 2019, August 2019, pre-pandemic. We've kept you company throughout the pandemic at times when things are looking at more and more post-apocalyptic with food shortages, water shortages, fuel shortages, supply chain issues, power issues. It's all happening. But one thing that is constant is that we will continue broadcasting across the internet radio waves and bringing you Wastelands radio show for years to come. This is the season finale of Series 3. We will be launching next week into Series 4. We are asking the listeners to get in contact and tell us what you want to hear. Give us some feedback, and we will start doing some mailbag shows and reading out your emails and messages online.
Absolutely. Tell us your unconventional comfort movies, or even what are your conventional comfort movies. Let us in on that side of things, you know.
Tell us why you think Xanadu is better than Thunderdome.
Oh, Xanadu.
All right, Marco, let's wrap this one up at an hour and 11 minutes. Is there anything else you would like to add?
It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Before you say another word.
Sure.
I'm just recording because this is now the after party of episode 100.
Woo! Ah. Oh, mate, you should have gone out and got yourself a beer.
I've got my peppermint tea. Am I good?
Whoo!
Mate,
I got some tea over there too. I should join you in one.
I'm thinking what we're going to start doing, listeners, is after every episode, we're going to just do a little postscript where if there was any little things that we forgot to mention or just little wraparounds, this will be the bonus content that if you become a subscriber to our service, that you'll get access to this type of business. Marco.
Yes, sir.
Question that pops into my mind about American Werewolf in London. And Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is what's a question, probably more of a statement. They're both films that used American money, but weren't filmed in America.
Oh yeah, I wonder if that was common at the time, because it's certainly common now.
And I think also they become when they filmed. Maybe now, the thing about when a film is using American money, like particularly say American films filmed in Australia now, that you don't really see the Australian essence. It's just an American. It's just an American film on the Gold Coast or in Brisbane or in Fox Studios in Sydney. But back in the day, if you had an American film filmed in Australia, it was the who's who of Australian actors.
Yes,
it might have had an obligatory American actor in it. But it was I think it's an interesting take, because there's also in American Werewolf in London, like there's British actors, like you said, Rick Mail, and it feels like a Hammer film, but.
Yeah, it does feel like a Hammer film, especially some of the cast that we haven't thought or talked about tonight, which is like the doctor and the two police officers, the older guy trying to be so serious and the younger one being a little bit more, bringing the almost like slapstick comedy to it,
it's almost like this scene here, like this is what like
let one live.
That lunatic must have been a very fierce fellow.
Wasn't a lunatic.
What?
A wolf.
The lunatic must have been a very fierce fellow.
Yes.
It's like it's got that real British sense of humor, right?
Yeah, it does. That dry delivery and that straight acting through what is such an outlandish, like supernatural situation. Would
you go as far as saying it's an out John Landish? Thank you. And I think that comedy might have actually been lost on the American audiences too. Do you think?
Maybe some of the comedy delivered by the American actors could have gone over well.
But the straight-faced, stoic, sarcasm.
Yeah.
I hate sarcasm, me. To throw back to a young one episode.
Oh, that's right. The the dryness of British humor for sure. But I think shooting things on, like I was saying before, shooting in locations that were would have been familiar to the London London hometown people. Sorry, I don't know what to say, but would have been so foreign to American at that time.
Almost exotic in the same way than Australian, like Mad Max Thunderdome. Like I think that what Mad Max films did was actually set the Australian desert as the feature archetypal space of the of the apocalypse.
Yep.
Because it just looks like it, because that's what happened, right?
Yeah, that's what it really is.
And when even when you're driving out here and you drive, well, as soon as you basically drive past Dalby West, you're hitting, you get over the Great Dividing Range, and this is like this. It goes from, it could be Miles and Chinchilla or Broken Hill or Cooper Pedy. It's west of the Great Dividing Range is the Wastelands.
Yeah, for sure. Out to Charleville, and then it starts to get really desert.
And then it's next level desert. But this is the thing, is that became the vision for the apocalypse. But that's just Australia.
But that's just Australia, yeah. You can in Road Warrior, the Miller captured that sense of space so well.
Like when he's standing on the cliff face, looking down, look at the start, and he's looking down.
Yeah,
and he sort of tried to recreate that at the start of Fury Road as well, where like there's a similar scene where Max is standing on the cliff face, but it's a big sky, and I notice it as soon as you get through, once you're sort of even heading out this way, you get on the other side of Ipswich. And you come down into Plainlands, and it's like the sky just opens up. It's like it's just big, and it becomes a character. The same way as the moors in American Werewolf in London become a character, or you're taking a character,
absolutely.
You're taking a werewolf out of the moors, which is so familiar in classic horror storytelling, and then putting it into a suburban urban setting.
Yeah,
and then that makes that iconic.
So you instantly make the viewer uncomfortable because you put them watching something happen in an environment they're not familiar with, and at the same time the people in the movie aren't familiar with either. And it's a great, like you said, turning that landscape into a character. It's incredible. If you want to see other people that embrace what we're talking about, ads, you can watch the extras on YouTube of Quentin Tarantino talking about how he took so much from Mad Max for Death Proof.
Yeah, and he talks about, and in the documentary Not Quite Hollywood, he talks about the Australians' love obsession with the way that we film a car. It's almost orgasmic because it represents the relationship that we have with the car. It's not just a mode of transportation. It's actually iconic in how we relate to each other and how we get around. And it was manifested in the way that Miller filmed the car, because the car was so important in his survival as a child in the bush. As much as punk rock was important to our survival of being kids in the bush. Place being a character is, just to loop that back around, is that in Mad Max Thunderdome, where it's a desolate wasteland for the first 45 minutes, and then they introduce this valley of green, lush, almost tropicalness. That's almost the same as taking a werewolf from the moors and putting it into the city, as taking Mad Max out of the desert and putting him into paradise.
Yeah. This place of abundance and water and, things growing,
and
you know, and young people.
And innocence, like Bartertown,
Yep.
which is everything opposite.
Yep,
No
yep.
green, stinks, corruption, power,
Mhm.
everything that's wrong with society. And
Yep.
Mad Max as being a villainous scumbag. You know, he became ruthless to survive. He's a ruthless killer, but then
Yep.
to be taking this ruthless killer in the middle of a utopian, innocent enclave is a real shift. And I think that for me, that's another one of those juxtapositions that I can justify the Peter Pan story in that, because that juxtaposition of taking a brutal survivaler, putting in, everyone is being doing it tough for 20 years. There's been a nuclear war. Everything's radiated. There's no water. And here's these 40 kids living in a paradise waiting for Captain Walker to come and save them, who just happens
untouched.
to look like Max.
Yeah.
And may or may not be brown facing.
Oh, no.
Because the sort of thing is like, there's so many connections to Indigenous First Nations people.
Mm.
Are these kids Aboriginal, or are they reverting to to that? Or are they just super dirty kids? Like, I don't know, but there's enough of that in there. There's probably a bit of cringeworthy 80s treatment to First Nations people in there, but not
little bit,
but not so blatant that you're going to call it out Harry Connick Jr. style and Hey Hey It's Saturday.
Harry Connick Jr.
That was a chronic cough that I actually went with that too. So,
oh my God!
Hope you enjoyed that, listeners. That was for you, mate. I think that isn't it funny that when you let the tape roll, how much you can sort of just keep on riffing on this sort of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so close to our hearts. We know the ins and outs of it. It didn't really need to take a lot of notes to be able to, remind myself of the story arc and things like that. And they're beloved films for a really, really good reason.
I watched American Werewolf in London this week just to refamiliarize myself with it.
Sure.
It'd been a wee while since I watched it, and mate, there was several occasions that I jumped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still jumped. Which is
still
weird,
jumped.
Right? That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. That is weird. For me, when I was younger, the jump scares that you get in that movie were the gold standard of jump scares for me. Like, I could watch many, many other horror movies, but then when I went back and watched that one, even as getting older, they were the pinnacle. Like, fuck, jump scares. Get me every time. Get me every time.
And like I said it in the episode, I still can't get past Nazi werewolves invading a Jewish family house. Like,
I know.
There's something iconic about that, dude.
Yeah, yeah. There was, in real history, there was a special ops or black ops small battalion of like highly trained, I want to call them like black ops operatives in the Nazi army that Hitler called the werewolves.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of connection to biker movies and that type of thing, where the Iron Cross and the motif of the wolf pack is it comes across, and like I mentioned, the Rob Zombie movie has that, totally plays to that. To that part as well. So
for sure.
But I just remember it was so familiar in saying, taking a situation like the tube and putting a werewolf running through it. I think for me why that scene was so lasting is because mum and dad, kids sitting around the TV watching the Muppets on a Saturday or Sunday night was so familiar. It was so comforting. It was so real. And then to have that tranquil sanctity of home invaded by intruders that are werewolves, no less, and shooting up the place. It was brutal, dude.
Very brutal. And he was having that dream in London, which was heavily bombed
and
by the Nazis during World War II.
And
you know,
both sides of war. Soldiers will be guilty of invading civilians' homes and werewolves aside, that's a very real thing. That shock and awe and scare and the carnage of war and war crimes, all that is so horrific, and more horrific than a transformation of a man into a werewolf, because it's real.
Yeah, it's real. And it almost seems like we know it's a dream, but it almost seems like something completely unrelated dropped into the movie, and I think John Landis must have had a really, I don't want to say good time, but he must have had a really interesting time creating these dreams to put in the middle of the movie, because they stand out. They really do. Him running naked through the forest and hunting down a deer or something or whatever it was, and then, like you said, the Nazi werewolves invading the Jewish home. Like, they're really they're in there only because they're dreams. They have no other place in the movie at all. But they must have been so interesting for him to do, and such a important way to get into the head, literally, of this kid who's been going through this serious traumatic event and being given bad news on top of that, like him to process it. It makes perfect sense.
There's a whole Franz Kafka metamorphosis undertone in a werewolf movie, I reckon. If we want to get really academic on it, is that if you're starting to dream, that whole concept of the dream and the dream sequence and the transformation and the metamorphosis and the manifestation of what you fear the most. I think that's totally there, and not just that. I hadn't thought of that. The only thing that I just thought of that then because of what you just said. It just really inspired that thought process, that metamorphosis. The change was coming. It could be a representation of a boy becoming a man, or going from the fear of the unknown. But that thing about having the dreams, having the haunted nightmares of the thing that you fear the most. So I think that's really interesting. I just dug this up. Listen to this.
This film is a brilliant achievement in motion picture history. Finally, the truth about Hitler's diabolical plans to create a race of superwomen can be told. Werewolf Women of the SS. Welcome to Death Camp 13, home of the Nazis' diabolical plans to create an army of super werewolf soldiers.
This project, its failure, will be your demise and the end of Germany, Bowman.
You have been chosen. Rejoice!
I have found the perfect solution. The she-devils of Belzec.
Can they alone supply the blood needed to save Hitler's mad dreams? Or will the pride of Germany fall into ruin?
This is my project.
We are now in total control of pure wolf.
And Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu.
This is my mission!
Werewolf Women of the SS.
I wish that movie was made, dude. I wish that movie was made. Like,
was that that was Tarantino?
Yeah, that was Rob Zombie's trailer in Grindhouse. So they had guest people do. That's when Machete was introduced from Rodriguez's trailer. So you didn't see it, but been playing that. Like it's got a werewolf using a machine gun in that looks just like those Nazi werewolves in American Werewolf in London.
Oh, yeah.
It's got Sherry
Tip of
Moon.
the hat.
It's got Sherry Moon Zombie in it because she's in everything that Rob Zombie does as the head she-wolf. And then with a really nice nod to Hammer horror films, where Christopher Lee always used to play Fu Manchu in the most shocking case of yellow face ever. Because, but then to take Christopher Lee, and then replace Christopher Lee's sort of character with Nicolas Cage. I love that dude. It is so awesome. But they haven't done anything but just put like a Fu Manchu beard on Nicolas Cage, and he just talks like Nicolas Cage. It's great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I really wish and hope that they make that movie, but unfortunately Rob Zombie decided to do a remake of The Munsters.
I really wanted to see, and it was in the pipeline, I really wanted to see Bret Easton Ellis had started collaborating with Rob Zombie on the remake of the Charles Manson story, which I think would have been absolutely brilliant. But I think it got nixed because Tarantino was working up
the Sharon Tate
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. Look, and it's interesting that, isn't it? Because they're sort of like at the end that they're sort of different ends of the spectrum, Tarantino or Rob Zombie, but still in the same wheelhouse. That's sort of like genre based. Like if Tarantino's the gold standard, Rob Zombie can put a artistically beautiful movie together. They just I just wish you just wouldn't keep on doing remakes. Like remaking when he was doing like The Devil's Rejects or Three from Hell or House of a Thousand Corpses, amazing movies.
Yeah.
Then you know, the first Halloween remake, not so bad. The second Halloween 2, and now he's doing this Munsters remake. You know, like I think if he when he gets into movies inspired by the stuff that he loves, I think that's when he really hits his, because he, like us, we will talk endlessly about the shit we love that we're passionate about. He could make a film because he's so immersed in the subject matter. And I go far just to loop this around to say that I don't think you'd have to dig too deep to find that Rob Zombie loves American Werewolf in London.
Yeah. Would agree. Would agree.
There we go. I don't know. Apparently, Furiosa is on the cards and is going to happen, which is the next Mad Max movie.
I can't wait. I think that's perfect, and I hope they get to film it back in Australia this time.
And I think there's probably a good chance of it. The other thing too is it's Charlize Theron is not going to be in it because the Furiosa is younger, so they're going to play with that timeline. But I think the actor who played the role of the chess queen in the Queen's Gambit, I can't remember her name, but she's really great, and I think she's going to be playing a young Furiosa. So it'll be interesting to see how that lands in the wheelhouse. But apparently Tom Hardy may be in that as well. So
Tom Hardy should be in that. I think just change, if possible, just change the Max actor once. Yeah. You know, don't make it a revolving door. Don't turn it into like a James Bond sort of scenario.
No. I would also like to see a super in the future Mad Max, where it's Mel Gibson again.
Fuck yeah!
Like an 80-year-old Mad Max.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe when things have started to go full circle and society's rebuilding itself again, but he's still that nomadic outsider that is who's seen some shit. You know.
Sorry, I'm going on a Walking Dead tangent for a second, but I have found out that if once you get to the end of series 11, while series 11 is still being watched, we can find out more about what's to come and what's going on with Rick Grimes and stuff like that by watching more of Fear the Walking Dead and also that other spin-off, the one with the more millennials.
Yeah.
I think a new world or something.
Yeah, because they touch on the that organization that has existed.
Yeah.
That is existing with the helicopters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because the helicopter connection is the last series I'm up to in Fear the Walking Dead. They're totally into that whole helicopter drop thing, and Morgan is across into Fear the Walking Dead.
Yes.
Which is obviously that connection between Rick Grimes and Morgan is really quite tight.
Yeah.
Because he's become sort of like the leader of that new sort of group on the East Coast. But the helicopter mode, because the last time we see Rick is he's being traded and he's flying off in a helicopter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There is definitely that, I'm probably not that far. I haven't seen all episode.
Me either.
Series 11. I think I'm only halfway through series 10, but I'm pretty up to date with Fear the Walking Dead. And
oh, cool. I'm not.
That's sort of, but yeah, they're good. They Fear the Walking Dead and then that other millennial one totally touches onto it, because the senator representative in that first episode that I saw comes and visits that community. And that political organization is known for taking particular people from the best of communities to then go and help rebuild civilization, which is probably like that hint is the gold standard Rick Grimes being plucked out of and taken to, so yeah, I totally think that's in there. Wow, man, that's a real full circle.
It is. Man, I got another one that I want to start to read. I've got the book here, but the font, man, it's not my eyes. The font, it's so tiny. It's a edition printed in the either late 80s, early 90s of Stephen King, The Talisman.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to start reading it. And it's another one of those bricks, mate. And they've published it with the tiniest font to save paper,
because it'll be this big.
Oh, far out. And Demi asked me last week, she's like, I want to send you a care package, Mark. What can I send you? And I was like, well, honestly.
Glasses.
Yeah, please. No, I said a more recent edition of The Talisman would be really good, because now they use a better font, a clearer font, and but the pages of the copy I've got are really yellowed. But why I want to read it is because the Duffer Brothers have just announced that that's going to be their new thing. They're remaking The Talisman.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. So Stranger Things versus Stephen King's.
Yeah.
That's Worlds Collide, isn't it?
Man, yeah. And it's, yeah, definitely. It's an epic. It's an epic with kids in it. So imagine imagine the Dark Tower, Lord of the Rings, epic size of the world.
Crossed with Stand By Me.
Of course. Yeah, but with
Stranger Things kids.
with Stranger Things kids that get into this kind of parallel universe. It's got I think it's going to be a real interweave of the Dark Tower world.
That sounds amazing.
And now.
Oh well, I think I've got a couple of versions of that at home. I'll have to start digging that out. I just don't get enough time to read.
I hear you, man.
Because I used to just sit up, put the bedside light on and read. But I don't do that anymore because the wee one needs to sleep.
Yeah.
And I need to sleep. The biggest thing I get to read at the moment is articles in my Viva La Rock. That's about as much as I can stitch together.
That's cool too, man.
Because each story is one shit long.
That's great. So, oh my God, man.
But that's the way it goes. Oh, mate. All right. Well,
that was really enjoyable.
That's our bonus episode. That's our bonus extra content.
Nice.
There.
Our rant episode.
I think something happened. I don't know. I'll have to go back and listen to it. But it stalled for a second. So we'll see what we lost in that bit. But anyway, it was just a rambling riff fest.
I love it, man. I love it. Because we're both so into the same stuff. And yeah, it's just so good to talk about, man. It's
I
fucking
like it
great.
when we get into the mode of hypothesizing about storylines of shit that we're into.
Yeah.
So yes, all right, mate. I'm
Go rest.
I'm going to go and see what's on the old tube.
Sounds good, mate. I can just see that you're starting to fade out, bro. Thank you for tonight.
It was just like,
Yeah, sorry, man.
No,
I didn't mean
good.
to chew your ear off,
No,
but
it's great, man. Like, what else am I going to do? Sit here and hang out in Chinchilla, Miller's Chinchilla?
Yeah, the thriller in Chinchilla. Nice.
All right, mate. I'll talk to you a bit later on, okay?
Okay, sounds great, Ads.
All right.
Sleep well.
Bye.
Bye.
It's over! It's finished!
Like